In the ancient lands of Israel, in a time when the Philistines oppressed the people of God, a prophecy was whispered among the people, a prophecy of a child born with a purpose, destined to begin the deliverance of Israel. This child was Samson, born to a humble couple after years of yearning for a child. His birth was no ordinary one, for an angel had appeared to his mother, promising that her son would be a Nazirite, consecrated to God from birth. This meant he would never cut his hair, never touch anything unclean, and never drink strong wine. From the moment Samson drew his first breath, there was something undeniably different about him. His parents, knowing the divine promise, watched over him with great care, teaching him the ways of their people and the importance of his vow. As a young boy, Samson was wild and free, his long hair already a symbol of his unique calling. He was drawn to the outdoors, to the wild hills and valleys of his homeland, where he would often be found chasing the wind or wrestling with the young goats. One day, while exploring the rugged terrain near his village, young Samson came across a lion, fierce and mighty, lurking in the shadows. The beast roared and leaped at him, its claws extended, ready to strike. But Samson, small though he was, felt a surge of strength unlike anything he had ever known. With a mighty roar of his own, he grabbed the lion by its jaws and, with a twist of his hands, tore the creature apart as if it were nothing more than a young goat. His heart pounded in his chest, not with fear, but with a thrill of power. As Samson grew older, his strength continued to manifest in incredible ways. The village buzzed with stories of his feats, each more astounding than the last. He could lift boulders that would take 10 men to move, and he often did so with a grin on his face, as if it were mere child's play. The fields where he worked became the stuff of legend, where even the strongest oxen seemed weak compared to the might of Samson. In one memorable incident, a group of Philistine soldiers came to the village, seeking to intimidate and subjugate the people as they often did. But Samson, now a young man, stood in their path. The soldiers, not knowing who they were dealing with, laughed and jeered at him, mocking his wild appearance and his long, uncut hair. But Samson remained silent, his eyes blazing with a quiet fury. When the soldiers laid a hand on a villager, Samson's rage exploded. He reached out and grabbed the nearest object, a simple wooden staff, and with a single swing sent the soldiers flying as if they were nothing more than leaves in the wind. The rest of the soldiers fled in terror, leaving behind their weapons and their pride. Word of Samson's strength spread far and wide, and soon he was known throughout the land as a man blessed by God, a force of nature that none could reckon with. The Israelites began to see him as a beacon of hope, a sign that their days of oppression might finally be numbered. Despite his strength, Samson was a man of deep emotion. He loved his family fiercely and was loyal to his people. But there was also a restlessness in him, a longing for something more, something he couldn't quite name. During one of his journeys, Samson encountered a woman unlike any he had ever met before. Her name was Delilah, and she was as captivating as she was mysterious. With eyes that seemed to pierce into his very soul, she drew Samson into her web with a charm and grace that he could not resist. Delilah was unlike the simple women of his village. She was clever and cunning, and she saw in Samson not just a man, but a means to an end. For Delilah was a Philistine, and though she hid her true intentions behind a veil of affection, her heart was set on discovering the secret of Samson's strength. The Philistine leaders, desperate to rid themselves of the threat Samson posed, had offered her a fortune in silver if she could uncover his weakness. Day by day, Delilah whispered sweet nothings into Samson's ear, her words like honey, her touch like silk. Samson, blinded by love and desire, began to trust her, revealing bits and pieces of his life. But whenever she asked him directly about the source of his strength, he would laugh it off, teasing her with false answers, not realizing the danger that lurked beneath her beauty. Yet even the strongest walls can be breached, and Delilah, persistent and patient, finally broke through Samson's defenses. In a moment of vulnerability, he told her the truth, that his strength was bound to his vow to God, symbolized by his uncut hair. As night fell and Samson drifted into a deep, trusting sleep, with a cruel heart, Delilah called for the Philistine soldiers she had secretly arranged to be nearby, their presence hidden in the shadows just outside her door. They entered silently, their eyes gleaming with anticipation, knowing that the mighty Samson, the terror of the Philistines, was about to be rendered powerless. With a swift motion, one of the soldiers took a sharp blade and severed Samson's hair, the strands falling to the ground like the broken remnants of his strength. As the last lock was cut, the divine power that had coursed through Samson's body all his life drained away, leaving him weak and defenseless. Samson awoke to a harsh reality, his strength gone and his body weak. He was shackled, his hair shorn, and his sight cruelly taken from him. Thrown into a dark cell, Samson was forced to grind grain like a common animal. Yet, despite his physical suffering and the loss of his sight, his spirit remained unbroken. The Philistines, who had once feared him, now mocked and tormented him as they paraded him through the streets of Gaza. As time passed, Samson's hair began to grow back, symbolizing the return of his strength. The Philistines, confident in their victory, decided to celebrate their triumph over Samson with a grand festival in honor of their god, Dagon. The temple, filled with thousands of Philistine lords and commoners, became a place of revelry and mockery. They brought Samson out to entertain them, unaware of the strength that was slowly returning to him. Blind and weakened, Samson was led to the center of the temple, placed between the two central pillars that supported the structure. As the crowd jeered, Samson prayed for one final surge of power to fulfill his destiny. His prayer was answered, and the divine strength surged back into his body. With a mighty heave, he pushed against the pillars. The temple's foundation gave way, and the entire structure collapsed, crushing the Philistines within. In that final, cataclysmic act, Samson sacrificed himself to defeat his enemies, killing more Philistines in his death than he had in his life. Though his life ended, Samson's legacy as a hero of Israel was secured, a man who fulfilled his divine purpose in his final breath. Though he had fallen, he would rise again, his name etched forever in the annals of history as a man who, despite his flaws, was chosen by God to deliver his people.